Kris and Mads, sisters who love a good story. The only thing better than experiencing a good story is talking about it. We're here for the unfiltered, unhinged conversations with fellow story lovers and storytellers, and the occasional rant or rave about the shit that rips our hearts out and puts us back together again. The stuff that makes us laugh till we pee our pants, and the ones that teach us what it is to be human. Welcome to the Sisterhood. Welcome to another episode, you guys. I'd love to introduce our guest for the day. This is Allie from Allie Reads on Booktok. She is a great friend and fellow content creator. We actually originally conducted this interview on TikTok Live, so the very first half is our questions for Allie, and then we took audience questions at the end. Enjoy the episode.
Okay, so did you prepare yourself 2 truths and a lie?
I did it 5 seconds before I joined this call, so I'm ready. I have a long-standing theory that my parents are in the CIA. Number 2, every time I moved growing up, I changed my name. Like, would just introduce myself, different name.
I could see this, actually. I could totally see both of them.
And then number 3, you see my cat Gizmo back there?
Yes.
In 3rd grade, I dyed him pink, and the dye did not come out for 6 months.
Red and pink dye does stay really long term.
That's an old cat. I think that's the lie.
You think that's the lie? Why do you... Well,
yeah, because I don't think you had your cat for that long.
No, this cat is 15 years old. He's my parents' cat, and I just took him from my parents because they were trying to get rid of him.
CIA. I just think all of these sound like you, Allie. I think that you are this unhinged.
I
that
think
you
you're
changed
really
your
that.
name and you dyed your cat and you have a theory about your parents. I just think they can't all be truths.
I'm going to say you didn't change your name. That was the lie.
No, I never dyed my cat. I never did.
I was right, Allie.
I had to gaslight you a little bit. Right, because I grew up, and it ties into the CIA theory, but I grew up moving every 2 years. And so I was like, I'm going to be this whole new person every time I move. Obviously not. But I went by, you can see it in my name, Allison and Allie. I've gone back and forth between those two. I went by Marina for a little bit. That's my middle name. Went by Alex. Went by Alexandra. Just everything with an A or my middle name was fair game. You know when you have your imaginary friends and all that? I did that whole thing and had a different different persona for that, but that was someone else.
This is making so much sense, actually. I'm putting together all the pieces, and it's working for me. Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not just recreate yourself every time you move? It's just what a flex.
You have a solid theory that your parents are in the CIA and have never told you.
Yes.
Do you not know what they actually do, or do you just think it's a massive cover-up?
Sit down, okay?
We're set.
Well, so both my parents are bilingual. They both speak Spanish. And for that reason, their job likes to move them around every 2 years. We lived in Virginia 4 different times, the headquarters of the CIA. My parents don't tell me what they do. My dad is the one who works, and my mom leaves for 9 hours a day to play tennis. Comes back, not a drop of sweat on her, hair pristine, tennis clothes not sweaty. I don't know how old my parents are. They put me in survival camp as a child. They left me alone for 2 months in Canada once, and they put me in a boarding school and did not tell me why.
Have you ever just asked them?
I do. And you know what my dad gives me? The evil villain laugh. He goes, ha ha ha, no.
And you're well, then what is mommy doing at the tennis court all day?
It's like Spy Kids. They're like the parents in Spy Kids.
Oh my god.
Cherry on top, my dad keeps his office locked. They live in Mexico City, and every time I go, they have armored cars that have guns in them.
Okay, so what is your alternate theory if they're not in the CIA?
There is no other theory. They are.
In theory, if they are in the CIA, I'm actively, viciously blowing their cover every day. Because I do this bit all the time.
But I think what's weird is that you don't know how old they are.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, okay.
That is
I'm
insane.
very glad we started that with that 2 truths and a lie. That was riveting. Oh my god.
You have all the content you need for your first book?
Yes. Or several.
Comes out next year, guys. Be ready.
Wow. I love it. I don't even know how to get into book-related content.
I know.
That.
I'm like, how do we segue? Like, this is the conversation.
This
now.
is the only conversation that matters.
What do we even have? Well, first of all, how long have you been on Booktok?
I started in 2023, January 2023. That was my New Year's resolution. I was like, I'm going to start a passion project. And then I couldn't shut up. So here we are. I'm still here.
But you've been reading since before that, because your Goodreads is stacked from before that.
I did like the classic thing, like started with SJM. That was the gateway drug. And that was like 2020. So I like hadn't read a book for like fun. For like, I read for school and like for high school, blah, blah, blah. But I hadn't read for fun since like third grade. And then like did like all of SJM, did all of like the related romantasy series. And then I was like on Booktok, like to try to get more recs. And I was like, I could do this. This would be fun. And like, since then, I feel like my taste has changed a lot. And so like now, like, you know, Maddie, like I love the high fantasy books too. So this is my year 4 of reading. I thought I'd grow out of it or like get bored of it. No.
But I feel like you go through your like phases to keep it interesting. Like I do feel like you don't burn out on books, right? But you just burn out like on certain genres.
Yeah. So like I'll rotate through like high fantasy and then like I still do some romantasy. I don't not read any romantasy. I still love that. And then I'll do like rom-coms, I'll do sci-fi. And then like every once in a while I change it up. So like I read a horror book recently and kind of liked it. Every once in a while I'll read like a basic lit fic book. I want to read more like weird girl lit fic. I haven't done that yet. But I won't say no to anything except for splatterpunk. I will not read splatterpunk.
I have no idea what that is, so give me a definition.
When I was trying to get into horror, I like asked people in a video, I was like, where should I like go for the horror genre? Like, what should I try first? I'm really interested. I've never read a horror book. I've read like YA horror and I've read fantasy with like little horror elements, but never like a true horror book. And people were like, you should read Playground. Maybe don't look up Playground. What is the most violent, terrible, graphic, horrible thing that could possibly be read? And let's put that into the world. Probably not the correct definition of splatterpunk, but that's what I made of it when I was like looking into the genre. And like for someone to comment that on someone who's trying to get into horror for the first time, rude and insulting.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be into that either. How has your like reading evolved?
I did SJM, I did all of her series. So like all of ACOTAR, all of Throne of Glass, all of Crescent City, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, what else do we have? So I did the classic, like Bridge Kingdom, Danielle Jensen. I did all of Zodiac Academy. And then I would like so like, I think like City of Brass, I read like really early on. And I was like, I want more of that, like truly well-written stories that also like can have a little romance in them, but they have like higher stakes, like thematically, like really interesting, amazingly written characters that are complex and varied. And I was like seeking more of that. And then I got into like Red Rising and like Brandon Sanderson, and all of those kind of series, like Jade City recently. And then I've always just done a few little rom-coms because they're perfect palate cleansers. And I just feel like I love a good rom-com. I know, Maddie, I'm trying to get you to read more rom-coms. But Kristen, you like rom-coms, right?
Oh, yes. I went through a season where I binged them, and I think I went a little too hard. You know when you go too hard into one genre? So I took a huge break. But now I would say about every other month I do one.
Can we talk about FMCs for a hot second? Do you tend to love them? Is it hard to please you with an FMC? Do you find that there's a type that you like? Is there an author you think that does them well? Oh. Do you struggle with them as bad as Kristen and I do?
I feel like it depends on the genre. I think I'm more forgiving of certain kinds of FMCs in like certain genres. So like the Allie Hazelwood FMC, like the classic one in a rom-com, she is dumb. She's like so too quirky to live, you know, like whatever. I accept that in a rom-com. You put that in a high fantasy setting, and I'm like, you're dead. You're dead. You're not alive. We were talking about Rook and Rose on Discord.
Yes.
Renata, the most competent, brilliant woman. She gets thrown into terrible situations where, like, who could ever figure that out? But she's smart, and she gets it, and she knows what she's doing. I read another book recently, The Foxglove King. Again, similar concept. You've got, like, kind of a con going on, a spy situation. She's dumb. She's dumb. I actually didn't even hate her, but I was like, use your brain. Use your brain.
This is honestly the thing that can break a book so fast for us. Yeah. We've learned is just that, like, we just don't like the girl. Everyone's in love with her. She has no flaws. Kind of like cardboard bread personality, but she's got a knife. She's a little sassy, and that's it. And that is it.
that is like a character that I used to be really drawn to probably when I first started reading. And now that I've seen it so many times, I'm ready for like a little more nuance.
I don't think sassiness is a whole personality. Like sassiness just isn't enough. It's not that I hate sassiness. It's just like, that's it. That's what you got. That's like,
I also feel like maybe we're harder on women. Yeah. I feel like.
Yeah, Kristen has this theory that
Because-
we're more forgiving of men.
Yeah, because
male
like I'll be
characters.
like, oh my gosh, why do I love the men in every character? I'm like, it's because I'm attracted to men and I see past their flaws because I'm like, look at all that they do. But for the women, I'm like, you could do better.
So some of my favorite romances are like with shitty characters. Like they're terrible people, but they're like, you kind of like, but they're deserving of love and they like obviously love each other. So like You Again, people hate that book because the individual characters suck. They're terrible. But like one of my favorite romances ever.
The only reason You Again did not get 5 stars for me is because I read it back to back with Alone with You in the Ether. Alone with You in the Ether is just You Again, but better, in my opinion.
I think Alone with You in the Ether is You Again, well, minus the like with When Harry Met Sally aspect to it, but also just like line by line, like the prose of Alone with You in the Ether. I mean, Oliver Blake, it's her signature. Like it's just you either love it or you hate it, and I love it.
We're lovers.
What type of books or amount of books or format do you use most?
Oh, I am strictly Kindle and audiobook. So like Audible. I have a few like trophies, like just book carcasses, but like those are just props. I have like 30 books total. I don't know. I feel like I'm much faster with my Kindle. And I like my comfort Kindle, that comes with me everywhere.
Plus, you live in New York, right? So it's not like you've got tons of space for like a full library.
No, I do not. I have a tiny little bookshelf. She's adorable. She's perfect, but I don't have enough space for books, and I read them so much slower when I read them physically. But I feel like maybe when I'm outside of this like rapidly consuming, need to be reading 5 books at a time kind of energy that I'm in, like maybe when I'm older, I'll like go back to physical and just like sit with a book and like enjoy it and not feel like I need to finish it. That's something, I mean, we should all try to do, but I feel like I'm trying to like read all these stories so quickly because I want to read everything that I'm like, I don't have time to sit down and read a physical book and like be a little bit slower at it.
Oh, there's so many good books to read. Like all of us fall prey to this because it's just exciting. And there is like a little thrill when you hit your Kindle edge and it flips the page. You're like, ugh.
That I have this like sixth sense when I'm about to pick up a book of whether I want to read it physically or not, based on whether it's going to be one of those that I want to like savor it line by line, or whether that's not really how the author writes and they're more direct and they're just trying to get the story in your head and get the plot across to you. And while I agree with that, yes, we should slow down and we should savor, and that's like kind of more my personality anyway, actually the more I'm reading, the more I'm like, you know what, the author doesn't even really need you to do that. They didn't write this for you to annotate it. Like, this isn't Olivia Blake. This is Evan Winters, and he's just trying to like deliver a plot to you.
I need it in the story in my brain. I think maybe like poetry books, because I used to really like poetry, like that I want physical. Like I'm not reading that on my Kindle. I want to like feel the texture of the page and like have a full sensory experience. I don't know. I think I see where you're going with that. Some stories are made to be read and consumed in like a rapid rate, and others like, to linger on if they're like beautifully written. Yeah, no, I like that. For the first 2 to 3 years that I started reading, so like 2020, 2021, and like most of 2022, the first 3 years on my phone. I read strictly on my phone.
That just like gives me a migraine thinking about it.
But also impressive.
I even had it on my laptop. I had the Kindle app on my laptop. I'd read on I was like, I don't need a Kindle. I'm not going to get another electronic device.
Do you have something against like paper? The internet needs to know these things. Like they need to know.
There are some other things the internet needs to know, and I think it's time for you to confess, Allie. With the exception of Jade City and David Bod trilogy,
And Zodiac Academy.
And Zodiac Academy, apparently, which you have finished. What is up with your first book syndrome?
I knew you were going to ask me this. So I started compiling a list of like books that I genuinely think are good. Book 1, I was like, this is a good book. I should continue this. Main Offenders, The Poppy War. I've read book 1. A Darker Shade of Magic, book 1. Mistborn, book 1. The Rage of Dragons, it's only 2 books out, but only book 1. The Blade Itself, book 1. A Deadly Education, so the Scholarman series, only book 1. The Bear and the Nightingale, if you guys ever saw that series, used to be really popular on Booktok, only book 1. The Lies of Locke Lamora, book one, Daughter of Smoke and Bone, Assassin's Apprentice, and then I should stop there.
Oh my god! And until recently, tell me if I'm wrong, but you'd only read The Way of Kings.
So I've read, now I'm committing to Stormlight Archive.
I kind of feel like you're a sprint reader. You're not really like a marathon girly, but you're getting there. Your endurance is growing with The Way of Kings.
I get so easily distracted, and if something doesn't like hook me, so a lot of these books, like the ending was satisfying enough for me that I wasn't like, I need to read book 2 immediately. Like, I also don't really binge series like straight. Like, I think I want to break from that author's voice in my head before I like go back to it, which is just not conducive to like binging an entire trilogy immediately. I'll tell you what I finished. Trilogies that I finished. The Day of Bod trilogy. The Rook and Rose, The Cruel Prince, Folk of the Air, Red Rising, if that counts, if you consider that like first 3, and the Greenmoon Saga. So like 4 or 5. That's
Yeah, how do you build your TBR? For all of us who are wondering, like, what influences you?
We feel like you're a trendsetter. Like, you're not just suggesting what everyone else is suggesting. So we want to know who your hookup is.
Yeah, there's a notes app that gets constantly shuffled around, and it's a mix of books that I've read or that I've seen on Booktok that like friends have recommended to me in person, or that like I've been on like rabbit holes down like Goodreads or like on the internet, and like I saw that this was a classic that I need to read. And that just gets completely shifted around based on like who I'm talking to. And if someone tells me, oh, you should read that right now, I'll move it to the top. And then someone else will say, no, you should read that right now. And then I'll move it to the top of that. And then it just gets completely out of order. I have like a friend in publishing who has like her job is like distributing ARCs to influencers, which I guess I count. So here we are. But I don't actually get that many ARCs. NetGalley is where I get, I think, a lot of like the books that haven't come out yet. I'm trying to think of like, what are you thinking of that I've started that like people haven't read? I feel like I read a lot of Booktok classics.
Maybe it's because you've been reading since 2020, but I feel like you read a lot of them like before you started making videos. Like Hyperion, okay? Like, yes, we had heard of Hyperion, but we heard of Hyperion from a tattoo artist when we were in the chair. Like, we did not hear about Hyperion on Booktok. Or like that, what's that Dresden lady? Is that her name? That writes romance? I've never seen that on Booktok. I'm like, where are you getting this weird ass shit from?
You just picked 2 topics that I love to talk about, so I'm trying to decide which one I want to approach first. No, I'll go with Hyperion in order that you brought it up. Hyperion, I was trying to get into a club in New York, and I was talking to the bouncer. I was like trying to sweet talk the bouncer, and I was drunk. Like, I was like, what are we into? He was like, I love to read. I was like, I love to read. I was like, best book you've ever read. Well, I was like, what genres do you like first? And he was like, sci-fi. I was like, go. Best sci-fi book you've ever read. He was like, all-time best sci-fi book I've ever read, Hyperion by Dan Simmons. It's a classic in the field, blah, 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 blah. I was like, I'm reading it and I'm coming back and you're letting me in. And like it was like my in. So then I like woke up the next day and I had written it in my notes app in all caps. And I was like, I mean, I've got to see this through. Like, I have to read this book. The bouncer ended up becoming really good friends with my friend. And like, I got dinner with him at like later on. And he was like, did you ever read Hyperion? And I was like, really, really innovative stuff. So no, the concept, fascinating. It's like a very like Canterbury Tales, like, so you follow these they're kind of like follow these pilgrims. They're going to this certain destination. I won't bug you with the details. And they're all telling this like crazy story. And a lot of these stories are like intertwined with this, or like bring into the story this like Shrike character. And he's this like spiky man creature of like death and destruction and chaos and evil, sinister, blah, blah, blah. Really interesting concept. It was so dry. So dry. Ooh. And so like with any like story that has a bunch of like anecdotal stories within it, like some are just better than others. And I did not give a rat's ass about some of these stories that I was hearing.
Oh no.
I have never added this book to my TBR for this reason.
This happens though. This happens.
Grace Draven, I got from Booktok. There's this one Janessa, if you guys follow her, she is known for her fantasy romance trifecta. Romance, spice, and plot, or like romance, fantasy, and plot, but there's like 3 things that she looks for in a book, and she finds things that fit the trifecta and like does these like big rec videos on it. And she has a lot of like old school romantasy as well as new romantasy, but I love her old school romantasy recs. They're really good, and Grace Draven is one of them. She has such unique characters for the genre, I think in a large part because they weren't being written where like every character is a stabby, sassy, snarky assassin, right? So like her FMCs are like a little bit softer. So like they're not this like crazy badass person, but they have always this like inner strength that I find incredibly like admirable. So like they are typically ugly or plain or like not hot. They're described as like hideous sometimes. And you get to like love them for just like seeing who they are inside, and not because like their personality is snark, but just like they're navigating often these like difficult situations, and they're romantasy situations, like marriage of convenience, blah, blah, blah. She gets married off to this like demon king. Sweetest, most respectable romance I've ever read. He is like, he's like this demon race, but he's a gentleman. This man is a gentleman. And it's friends to lovers. It's not enemies to lovers. They immediately respect each other and like each other. And then but the tension comes from the fact that like they're different species. They think each other is hideous. They think they're ugly. He looks at her and he's like, "You're the ugliest I've ever seen." And she thinks he looks like a demon under her bed. It's so cute. It's so cute. Her fantasy worlds are well written and like interesting. Like she has genuinely good world building in the like with all the romance going on too.
Well, you like don't have to share too much. You can just share what you feel comfortable with. But why do you share online? Obviously, it takes time, it takes energy, it takes creativity, it takes away from your reading time. So, like, why do you do it?
Well, I think it started with like I didn't have any friends in my real life who were into the same things that like I was into. Like I have friends who read, but they don't read like. They didn't read like the high fantasy. They didn't read like the romantasy stuff. And I think I was like seeking other people to talk to about it. And I was like, this is the quickest way that I can like make friends and have someone to talk to this about. Something that was like just kind of like boiling inside me, like this passion and like this insatiability for reading these kind of stories. And like when you spend so much of your life and time doing something, like you want to talk about it. And this was my way to do that. And then I started talking and like the videos did not do well. Like when you first start, like it's so embarrassing. You're like, no, there's 15 people seeing these. But then like one person would, and they'd like DM me or they'd comment, and you get the little like, that little like sparkly feeling where you're like, I'm talking to someone about something that I love so much and they feel the same way. And like, it just grows and it grows and it grows. And it's like addicting in like the best sense, like not in the toxic sense, but just like I have made like, I'm doing this right now with you guys, which is insane. I have friends like all over the US, like all over the world that like we're connected with this one thing. And like, it's just opened so many doors now beyond that. Like I'm still getting the same kind of interactions and connections with people, but now it's like even in person. I go to Chicago for work. I cancel my flight back because I find out my internet friend is going to be there and I want to meet her for the first time. I go to Comic-Con. I would have never gone to Comic-Con if I hadn't started a Booktok. I would have never gone to all these like author events. So it's just like the gift that like keeps on giving. And so like every time I think like I do it for this reason, then there's another reason that I'm doing it, because it just keeps getting bigger and more fun. And I love it. But definitely originally to talk to people about stories that I loved.
Okay, guys, I have one more question I want to ask Allie, but you guys can start dropping your questions and we'll try to get through as many as we can. I want to talk to you about your hilarious Goodreads reviews. I think especially your contemporary romance Goodreads reviews, because they're all just like tee.
I lose all eloquence when I'm like my brain just like turns into like a mushy little blob of happiness when I read a contemporary romance, and I think my reviews reflect that because I'm like screaming, crying, throwing up, peeing my pants. Like, oh my god, they're so fun.
And I love reading your reviews because I feel like you'll always talk about the thing that like stood out to you about the book, where you're like, this is just the thing I didn't see coming. It's not that I missed that maybe always, but it's like, oh yeah, like that happened. And then I'll like the fact that you pointed it out, I'll like love that.
I do not give a summary ever. Summaries just don't stick in my brain. Like I don't think about that when I finish the book. I think about like how it made me feel, like what I noticed, like what you're saying. Like, and then I'm like, oh, I should probably tell them what it's about. Oops. I mean, if you follow me on Goodreads, you just get a sneak peek of what I'm going to talk about on TikTok. Because I often like, Goodreads is almost like I'm talking to myself, and it's just an added pleasure that other people see it. And like those are my notes. Those are my archives. Like, okay, I'll censor myself maybe a tiny bit with like bad words, but like mostly that's like me being like, remember this and this thing and this thing. Oh, and you liked that, blah, 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 blah. And so like, if you see my Goodreads review, like that's just what I'm going to say out loud. Because I'm like, when I'm on TikTok, like I'm kind of talking to like me / my friend / maybe my mom. I don't know.
Okay, let's get to some questions.
Oh, what's your next read?
Well, I'm currently reading Blood Over Brighthaven, and then I think I told someone that I was going to read Black Sun. Depending on how Blood Over Brighthaven goes, if it's emotionally devastating, I might need a rom-com.
Okay, but where do you find your rom-coms, Allie? Because I literally only read contemporary romance that you recommend.
Allie Hazelwood, always going to be a banger. Emily Henry, banger plus emotional destruction. Julie Soto, like, she's the next big thing. Like, if you're not reading Julie Soto books, you should be. That's Forget Me Not and Not Another Love Song. I'm trying to think. Kate Goldbeck is really good. That's the You again. I'm waiting for Kate Goldbeck to put something else out.
Michael Kiss very seriously would like to know if your parents have any books like I'm in the CIA and hiding it from my child.
Their entire bookshelf covered in those kind of things.
Off the top of your head, top 3 favorite contemporary romances.
No, this is Forget Me Not. It might be one of them. And then an Allie Hazelwood book. I'm trying to think which one it would be. I've read The Love Hypothesis several times. Do I think it's her best? Probably not. But does it have my like heart, soul, and body? Yes. I love that book. But Bride is my favorite by Allie Hazelwood, but technically that's fantasy.
How do you prep your videos? Is it as chaotic as it seems?
How do I prep them? Oh, this is a terrible thing that I edit and record in the TikTok app, which is like apparently sacrilegious, blasphemy. But I do. How do you guys record? Do you record outside of it?
We edit in the TikTok app, but we always use my camera on my phone. I say my phone because Maddie's phone is not as new as mine, so we have to edit and do everything on mine.
But what if you want that filter? TikTok has like a little blur effect that's always on.
Well,
Oh.
we've never used it.
Wow.
Yeah, we need to know about this magic. No, because here's the real truth. The invert filter
Yeah.
breaks my brain. So for the
Oh my god, I try to be so good about it. It hurts.
No, so it helps to just use the back camera. Like we just record each other and then it eliminates the distraction of looking at yourself and then you don't have to invert,
Yeah.
You guys often like work off of each other so much, and I feel like that's such like a enjoyable part of like the content that you guys make, and like seeing the sisterly bond and banter in action.
What's your rating system? How do you decide?
Sometimes when I'm in a mood, I hand out 5 stars like candy. Like that's just like you get a 5 star and you get a 5 star. I don't do that as much anymore now. Like especially depending on the genre. Like I'm tough on these fantasy books. I'm like I know what's great and I know what's not. And if you are not amazing, you're not getting it. But it also is so mood dependent. So I have a tough time rating a lot of books because my feelings towards them change throughout my reading process, and also like depending on the mood I am. Like sometimes that book is hitting and I can tell it's because I'm in the right mood for it, and then I'll read it 2 days later and it's no longer hitting for no other reason besides the fact that like I'm not in the mood to read that story anymore. And so like it's just so tough to rate those kind of books. But in general, 5, one of 2 ways: either no thoughts, all vibes, just like had the most scrumdiddlyumptious time, so much fun, and that's like a rom-com. Like and then the other kind of 5 star is like life-changing, perspective-altering, ground world breaking, like a 5th season. The 5th season I think about all the time, and I don't think it's everyone's like favorite. Like the 5th season is so hard to talk about, honestly, but like I've never read a book like that, and I don't think I ever will, and it just changed the way that I think like that I perceived that books could even be written, which is so dramatic to say. But love that book. Different kind of 5 star. 4 star is, again, it's so nebulous. It's like, you're good, I liked you, but you weren't great. You're really good, but you're not great. Or you're really well written, and that's it. 3, I just talked about 3 today. 3 is like one of 3 ways. Either you're so fucking middle of the road that I hate it. Like you didn't make me feel anything. but you're not bad, but you're not good. You're just nothing. You're just a book. 3-star. Books that I think are for other people, but maybe weren't for me. So like, at the time, now I think I would feel differently because now I read more high fantasy. But at the time where I was reading SJM, only Zodiac Academy, I read The Blade itself. Because someone was like, oh, you like fantasy? Me, romantic girly at the time. They gave me The Blade itself. I read The Blade itself. I was like, where is the kissing? Where is it?
Galacta can't kiss very well. He doesn't have enough teeth.
I'll still stand by the fact that I loved that. I loved Galacta. I was like, I've never read any character like this book. Anyway, that I rated a 3-star at the time because I was like, this is not badly written, just not for me. Now I think it might be for me. Anyway, 2-star is like trash, but like maybe just like slightly above irredeemable, you know? Like there was a few things that saved it from being a 1-star, but they were. And then 1-star, we know what 1-star is. You know when you see it, like, or problematic. So if something's problematic, like deeply, genuinely, I have like issues with it morally, I'll rate it a 1-star.
Yeah. But you still finished it. Like you've rated stuff 1-star that you finished.
Yeah.
We are feeling 1-star energy. That's a DNF.
Yes, also true. But I can't fully DNF books. Maybe I've talked to you about it. Like if I'm gonna DNF a book, I DNF it, but I skim. So I read like chapter titles. I read like the beginnings of certain paragraphs. I scan for dialogue because like I want to know what happens and I want to know if it continues to be shitty and terrible the whole way through.
Crazy. Okay, someone wants to know, do you update Goodreads as you go or do you go back to the do you go back at the end and like do it?
Both, I guess. Like as I'm reading it, I do the 25% done, 50% done, like little updates if I have like a thought. Also it's like a reward. And then I'd like finish the book and then I'll like write up my whole review through looking at like the annotations that I have, or just sometimes no thoughts. I just like spew out whatever I'm thinking.
When do you listen to your audiobooks the most?
When I'm running, when I'm going to work, I train, or I have like a shuttle that takes me to work every day and it's about like an hour long. So like it'll be like an hour there, hour back. And like any kind of intermediary time, like if I'm cleaning, if I'm folding laundry, if I'm doing the dishes, yeah, like whenever I don't really have a lot of time alone in my head. Like I'm either listening to an audiobook or I'm like listening to music or I'm like on the phone with someone.
What advice would you, Allie, give to someone who wanted to start a book talk but is scared about being awkward?
Oh, I heard once like that the fear of being cringe is the death of creativity. And that has really stuck with me because I look at like the initial videos that I made and I'm like, that is an awkward, weird video. Why did I talk like that? Why did I do that? Like, why was I so clearly, visibly uncomfortable with what I was doing? And I think it's just something that like takes time. Like it takes time to like find your style, like get comfortable, like looking at yourself and like talking to a camera. And it's something that you should just try and eventually like you just get better at it, which doesn't like sound like good advice, but like you practice anything, you get better at it. And like with the constant exposure to the screen and like seeing in real time, like what people react well to, you're a social creature. You figure out like what people are receptive to, like what they aren't, and you do more of that. And you also do more of like what brings you like natural joy. So like I initially tried a lot of different kinds of content. Like I did the slideshows, I did like ranking videos, or like the little like sound bits where you'll like dance along to something or like talk along to something. And the only thing that made me really happy was like talking. So I think you have to have like this internal kind of radar on like what excites you and the kind of content you like to make, and like dive into that, because then you're going to keep doing it. You're going to like doing it, and it's going to show. Like you can so clearly see when someone's talking and they're so fucking excited that they're like shaking the phone or like they're just so naturally passionate about what they're doing. And that like takes time to like get there and to feel comfortable getting there. But I think if you're trying and just continuously like thinking about what brings you joy and like the process, like you'll get there. And it looks different for different people. Like I will never be one of those accounts with like millions of followers, and that's okay. And I like it that way. Too many people seeing it versus like no one ever seeing it is like manacles. Like just get rid of it. Like do not compare yourself to like other people who have been on here for years. Do not compare yourself for people who just started and like got 50K overnight. Like that's not you. people who are interested in what you're talking about, and you are going to find you, and it's going to be so fun because you're all going to be best friends, and it's going to be perfect.
I hope everybody just heard that and took notes.
Somebody wants to know how you get your hair glossy, Kristen.
Your hair does look gorgeous, Kristen. What is the routine?
Mermaid hair.
My hair is not glossy. I think it's just the light reflecting.
It looks really glossy.
It's a ring light.
I'm secretly a mermaid. I don't know. Okay, I think it's time that we gush about you. This is our favorite thing to do at the end of every single conversation. I would rather read than scroll on any form of social media.
Okay.
I don't like to. I have such limited time. I don't like to. But yours are some of the few that make me really happy. You are high vibe. You are adding so much good shit to this space. I do understand why people are magnetized to you because you just kind of have like this very, well, this is who I am. So if you want to hang out, I'm not going to change for you. And it's just cool to see people show up as themselves. So you're entertaining. You're doing great. And I love watching you.
I agree with Kristen 100%. I feel like you're one of the most authentic people on the app. I feel like you're here when you want to be and you dip out when you don't want to be. And I always know you're reading anyway. And it's like, and you've been here around for years, like reading the books, whether you were making content or not. So you like have that integrity and that trust. Like I can trust you because I know you're not just pumping out content to pump out content. You're talking about stuff because you really liked it. You're reading what you want to read. You're not reading what's going to be a hot take or like what's going to be like, I don't know, what do people want you to read? You're just like, this is what I'm reading because it's in my notes app where I put it. And so I think you're genuine. I think you have integrity. I think you do you every time. And I love your book recs because I don't see that. Like I literally have 2 or 3 people who helped me build my TBR and you're one of them because it's just like, you'll always have something that I haven't seen or you'll pull something from a genre that's not on my radar. And I'm like, or I'll go to Goodreads after I finish a book just to see what you said about it because it just delights me. Like I just feel like you tickle and delight me. So you tickle and delight me. Oh my!
Wow, is this a rom-com in the making? We just have to meet in real life sometime because Maddie has literally been talking about you. I feel like you're like the girl that she cheats on me with, and I'm like, she has my permission. She has my consent. I'm like, you can. With Allie.
You're my hall pass, Allie. You're my hall pass sister. So anyways,
I'm so happy. This is also like part of the reason like we do what we do. Like this is literally like this is the highlight of my day, my week. So fun.
Well, thank you so much because you could be reading right now.
or watching Bridgerton. What do we do?
I'm going to watch Bridgerton tonight because the FOMO will be too real.
I need to watch the first episode. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for giving us your amazing energy tonight and just talking to us about books. It's really fun. This was a good time.
Okay, well,
To Bridgerton we go.
and text me if you watch it.
I will. I love you guys. You're perfect.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.